Thanks so much for watching AM Northwest this morning. From boomers to millennials and beyond, our first guest is here to help us communicate better across all ages. We welcome back the author of Human Lie Detection and Body Language 101, Vanessa Van Edwards. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So you say that each generation communicates a little bit differently.
Yeah, so we study communication patterns, and one thing we found was that there were commonalities across different age groups. And so I thought we would go through each of the generations, talk about what they value, and sort of a little communication tip for each of them.
Oh, that sounds good.
Because it's kids to parents, it's parents to kids, it's
peers,
young peers, it's young employees to older employees.
Right, good point.
You know, talking across teachers. A lot of the times we have boomer parents talking to Gen X teachers. So I thought this could be kind of a fun thing for no matter who you're talking to.
Okay, so let's start with the Gen Z.
So Gen Z, this is anyone born after 2000.
Okay.
So we're talking about kids and teenagers right now. Now, we don't know how they're going to communicate as adults, but here's what's interesting to think about. They're also called the I generation.
Oh.
For them, technology was not a choice.
Right.
It wasn't.
They've always had technology.
It wasn't if, it was just when.
Right.
It wasn't if they were going to get a Facebook, it was when. It wasn't if they were going to get a cell phone, it was when. So that means that they value very direct and entertaining communication. They have lots of communication coming at them from all different places, and usually they're in 140 characters or less. So for them, when you're communicating with them, you want to make sure it's bite-sized, and if you can, because they're younger, as fun as possible. So if you have a directive as a parent, you don't want to put it in a long lecture, right? Because they are not used to paying as close attention. You
know, when you say that, that reminds me that I've seen comments from people of that age on Facebook, and they'll say, that article is too long.
Too long. Exactly, yes.
So I don't want to read all that.
So their attention span is short, A, because they're 15 and younger, but also because they are used to consuming content in little tiny bite-sized pieces. So if you have something important to say, keep it really short, and even use their communication method. So text them, use a shared calendar. If that's easier than saying, hey, after school you have a dentist appointment. Right. That's going to be much more effective because you're using how they already communicate. Good one. Millennials. So millennials, this is our generation. So this is born 1980 to 2000. And
that's not my generation.
We're going to share it. We're going to always be millennials.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Come on, Helen.
I was like, okay, you were really complimenting me there.
We're millennials.
Okay.
Helen, yes. So 1980 to 2000. Okay. And so millennials, they're the biggest generation. There's a lot of millennials right now, and that's because it spans 20 years. Most generations are only about 15 years. Okay. So millennials, this is what surprises most people. They get along better with their parents than any previous generation.
And why is that?
So they think it's because they're also the boomerang generation. A lot of them are moving back into their parents' homes because they were born during a really hard economic time. So they had to get along and rely on parents. And so they're both emotionally and fiscally tied. So if you asked boomers or Gen Xers about their parents, they did not have as nice things to say as millennials. So they do get along with their older generations.
All right, what would be the communication tip?
So they value self-expression. So this surprised me. 40% of millennials have tattoos. 75% of millennials have online social media profiles. Oh. So they want to express themselves. So the communication tip for them is the more you can get buy-in when you're talking to them, asking their opinion, coming up with solutions together, talking things through. Talking with a millennial is much better than talking at a millennial. They really want to make sure that they put their stamp sort of on that communication or on that idea. So the more you can get buy-in, the better.
But self-expression is key there.
Yeah, the more you can honor that.
Interesting. So, Gen Xers.
So Gen Xers have it hard. They're also nicknamed the sandwich generation, and that's because they are sandwiched between boomers and millennials.
And they're born 1965 to 1980.
Yes, sorry, 1965 to 1980. And they have a lot of pressure coming from both sides. 47% of them have a parent who's relying on them, and they're raising a young child. So they have a lot of responsibility, and so for them, their value is actually shared responsibility. They're carrying such a heavy load that when you're communicating with them, the more you can offer help, the more you can try to make it easier for them and offer solutions, the more they're going to feel like, oh, I'm not alone. An interesting thing said that 84% of Gen Xers have parents that emotionally rely on them.
Oh, really?
So they also have a lot of connection with their parents, but that also comes with great responsibility. So the more that you can help them in your communication, the more you can take on some of their load or some of their burden, the more they're going to be grateful for your help, and the communication is going to
And does that work the same way in the job place?
Absolutely. So they are used to taking on big loads. You'll notice that Gen Xers in the workplace are always volunteering for extra projects. They're typically the one who's very responsible in getting
Even
things
though
done.
they have a lot of responsibility.
Yes, because they've been taught from a young age that they better be able to support a lot. They were also a lot of the latchkey kids. They were the ones who had both parents that were working
for the first time.
For the first time. Right. So they came home, they had to make their own snack, do their own homework. So they're very responsible, but they love when they get a little bit of help.
That's really interesting. The boomers, so 1946 to 1964.
So yes, the boomers, it's interesting because when we look at boomers, they're sort of split into two groups. One group, they're in cushy retirement. They're traveling, they're enjoying their grandkids. The other group, they're in their swan song career. They're going back because the recession hit them hard. They're in their second careers or they didn't save enough. And so you have a very split group. The good news is they value the same thing. They very much value respect and tradition. Because things are changing so quickly, the way that we communicate, even the way we drive, soon we're going to have self-driving cars. When you communicate with them, the more that you can respect their life experience, as well as the way that they've always done things, the more headway you're going to make. If you try to throw what they've been doing for years out the window, they often feel disrespected. So the more that you can respect them,
that's because this is my generation, so I'm listening. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, so the more that you can respect, because they have really good ways they've been doing things, and so a lot of the biggest mistake millennials make is they'll say, "Oh, I have a much newer, better, faster way to do that," and that is the wrong way to approach that kind of communication. So the more that you can have that respect, the better.
This is fascinating.
And there's these patterns are very distinct, right? It's very easy to see how we are able to bucket them, and when you respect how each generation communicates, I think that you have a much better relationship. And the last one, this is the silent generation. This was anyone born before 1946. The silent generation came up between two world wars, and the reason I think that they're called the silent generation is because their needs were silenced by what the country needed during that period. So this one's easy. If you're talking with a silent generation, someone born before 1946, they've learned so much more than you. They've lived so much longer. Communicate however they want to communicate.
Yes, good point.
Right? Just ask them a ton of questions about their life and celebrate the fact that they're here and they're talking to you. So the communication goes on their terms with the silent generation.
Absolutely. Really fascinating stuff. Vanessa, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Human Lie Detection and Body Language 101, Vanessa Van Edwards.
Wait, you're a great friend, so think of one friend who would like this video and send it to them. They'll love it.